As a One Piece fan, whenever the word pirate is brought up, my ahoge tingles. Pistol-wielding, saber-slinging, rope-swinging pirates. Yeah, definitely one of the best archetypes in existence. And Brant is exactly that buccaneer who will fulfill that yo-ho itch. Brant is the upcoming fusion sword-wielding 5-star character releasing in Wuthering waves, and he is sure to bring the waves of the ocean with his fiery kit. He's a sub-DPS, shielding, healing, buffing, quick-swapping character. Man, this guy just does it all. As crazy as all of that sounds, we need to dive, or rather, drop the anchor and see if Brant will stack up to the likes of Shorekeeper with sustain, or Shunli with sub-DPS damage, and man, he really has some big shoes to fill. My name is Void Enigma, and it is my pleasure to present to you a guide for the third male limited 5-star character released into the game, Brant. I'll be going over his kit, echoes, weapons, and best team options. Make sure to like and subscribe if you're enjoying the video. And let's set sail, scallywags. Blimey, another day on the Briggs and another lesson to be learned. Brant is quite a unique character as he is super versatile. But you know the old saying, jack of all trades, master of none? Well, does Brant fall into that category? We'll see by the end of this video, but let's go over with how he works. Firstly, Brant is a character who will be grappling onto the character to deal basic attack damage. He will be swinging in and out of combat and end with a nice finisher. This is all generally quick swappable, but the only portion that will actually be quick swapped is the first portion, because his animation will actually reset when he swaps out. In the air, he will do a very similar motion of attacks, but instead, he will be swinging to and fro from the target. While he's in the air, his air dodge resets after every aerial attack, so it's a good way to not be super vulnerable while in air. His resonance skill is how he gets into the air, while grappling onto the enemy. It does a small amount of damage when he actually leaps into the air as well. Now there's a little trick that you actually need to know. You see, sometimes you will miss the target when you actually cast his skill. Instead of falling to the floor, what you can do instead is dodge forward and then attack again, allowing you another chance to latch onto the enemy and continue the onslaught. This is very useful for gaining some quick momentum. His liberation is a very important part of his overall kit as well. Firstly, it deals a ton of damage, but when he uses it, he gets a hefty buff, and you'll hear a nice little bonk. So when he uses his liberation, he'll deal significant damage, and then he'll heal all party members by a small amount. It's not much, but it's still a fair bit. Then, he buffs himself with the Aflame state, which will significantly increase his forte generation. This also buffs his initial passive, allowing him to gain a very high attack buff, depending on how much energy recharge he has. So, what does all of this mean? Brant needs a whopping 280% energy recharge to reach that cap, allowing him to get 2600 attack. Without that liberation, he is gaining 1560 attack instead. So the liberation gives him about 1000 base attack. So it goes without saying that you'll want to actually start combat with his liberation. This elevates his kit, allowing him to deal more damage, heal his team, and gain more Concerto. Speaking of Concerto, Brant's Concerto gauge fills by using normal attacks, intro attack, and resonance skill. As he gains Concerto, he will also heal his party by small bits. When it gets full, his resonance skill is replaced by one of the most damaging skills in the game, Return from Ashes. This also gives him 20 Concerto when landing it. The thing is about this skill is that it can miss, and this is about 40% of Brant's damage, so you want to hit it. This is completely quick swappable and has a long animation, so it's amazing to use it, swap off so that Brant can do his own thing. Also, it's important to use this skill within 12 seconds of using his liberation to get the full bonuses from his liberation. That's not the best part though. He gets a massive thick shield when casting this skill, and it scales off of his energy recharge. If you built Brant for pure energy recharge, then this shield is massive. At level 10, it already gives you a shield for about 5k health, and the additional shield that it gives is based off his energy recharge per 1%. So no energy recharge will give him a bonus shield of about 1700 for a total of a shield of 6400. But if he does reach that peak of 280% energy recharge to max his passive, well, his total shield is a whopping 9500. That's 10k of extra health. Also, the shield resets each time he uses his enhanced skill, so it doesn't actually add to the Neil shield. We'll talk about which is better, giving him more damage or energy recharge later in the echo section, but for now, let's talk about how he works. The gist of his rotation is like this. You start combat with your Liberation, then you weave in quick swaps and just stick with Brant using his basic attacks in midair until his Concerto is actually built. Then, you pop that anchor and quick swap off and you're done. He will have healed your team, giving you a nice shield, contributed some damage, and buffed your incoming character's fusion and resonant skill damage all in one fell swoop. He's somewhat simple, but there are gimmicks to his rotations that need to be considered. There's also a timing with his quick swaps, and you do not want to swap too early. You miss out on a lot of damage. He will be a welcome addition to Yi Crew, and as captain, he will keep your team alive. Just like how you can keep this channel alive by liking and subscribing to the video. Go ahead and get your hook on the buttons and help support the channel. Now let's talk about Brant Boy's echoes, because boy, he does have a lot of echo options. Thanks, Pirate Enigma. Before we begin, remember that the required energy to max his passive is 280%. You get 32% from each of his 3-cost echoes, equaling to 64%. That means that without any other weapons or equipment, he'll be at 164% energy recharge. So, where on earth are you going to get the rest of the energy recharge from? Well, he does get an extra 10% from the Tiebreaker set, which is assumed to be his best in slot, equaling to 174%, which is far off from a 280%. In order to bridge the gap, you'll need his signature weapon, granting Brant 77% energy recharge and reaching the requirement for the Sonata effect of Tiebreaker. That means that to actually reach the peak of 280%, you'll still need 29% energy recharge from his substats, or from other places like maybe Shorekeeper's Echo's passive, but that is brutal. Before you freak out, it's not that bad. Even if you use the Overture on him, he could still reach 225% energy recharge, meaning that he needs at least 25% from substats, which is very possible. The thing with his recommended set is that you should only consider this option if you actually have Brant's signature weapon, or are prepared to have perfect echoes. Brant is one of the most difficult characters to fully build, but that doesn't mean that he is useless if you go this path. There are other ways to build him that are far more beneficial if you don't have a good set for him yet. I'll be doing this in 3 parts: the optimal way, the suboptimal way, and the just barely passing way. The optimal way to build Brant is with a 5-piece Tiebreaker set, with crit rate or crit damage for the 4-cost piece, energy recharge for the elite pieces, and attack for the common pieces. You want to have 3 to 4 of these echoes to actually have energy recharge to actually reach that cap, allowing you the ability to get a full shield and deal the most damage to the enemies with Brant. This set requires 250 energy recharge to get a nice damage boost, so you don't need the extra energy substats, but they are very much welcomed. The suboptimal way is to actually build him in a completely different way. He can use 2 different sets, the Molten Rift Fusion set and the Moonlit set. The Fusion set would be a better overall option as Brant does significant damage, and the Moonlit set can be a budget option if you're using him as a resonant skill buffer with the Overture weapon. In case you want to build him with the Fusion set, you'll want to go with the fusion damage pieces, of course, and completely ignore his energy recharge requirements. You can go with energy recharge, but without the substantial buff of 30% attribute damage that you get from Tiebreaker, his damage will fall off, so fusion damage is the way to go. The benefits of this build is that compared to the other set, it does very comparable damage, with the major downside of less healing and less shielding. Still a very usable shield, but his healing already kinda sucks, and with this set is almost non-existent. If you opt into the Moonlit set, he can be quite a suitable buffer with the Overture weapon, and he is already very quick swappable and builds his Concerto pretty fast. The other substats that you actually want to worry about is, of course, crit rate and crit damage, attack, basic attack bonus, and liberation damage. All of the substats are pretty much useless. He may be very hard to build, but you'll eventually get him in that Tiebreaker set. You can actually use the Overture with the Tiebreaker, but you'll need to be very strict with getting that 25% extra energy recharge that's needed. Reaching that maximum value is not a big deal though, but you need a minimum of 250% to consider this a good option. Now that I've talked about his echoes, let's talk about his weapons. The thing about Brant is, of all the characters in the game, he wants his signature weapon the most. To maximize his optimal build and do substantial damage and shield your party, he needs this weapon, and Overture will do just fine actually, but if you want Brant in his best place, then he really thrives with his signature weapon. So yeah, Unflickering Valor is his best in slot weapon, and it enables the best optimization as far as his echoes thanks to the hefty substat bonus of 77% energy recharge, allowing him to reach the requirements to use the Tiebreaker set without any additional substats. The passive gives a boost to crit rate, being only 8%, as well as a significant boost to his basic attack damage, stacking up to 48%, an excellent weapon for our captain. His next best option is actually the Overture. It's everything that Unflickering Valor is, minus of course, 20% energy recharge, 77 base attack, 48% basic damage bonus, and 8% crit rate. With that being said, for a 4-star, it ain't that bad. Plus, it helps him outro faster thanks to the Concerto game. To use this weapon with the signature set though, you need that extra 25% ER from substats, so just keep that in mind. The next weapons are all options that you'll want to either use the Molten Rift set or the Moonlit set to actually best use it, simply because it's impossible to reach his energy recharge requirements with these weapons. The Red Spring is an amazing option for him as it grants him a nice basic attack boost, however, he can't really take part of the second part of the passive because it's Camellia coded. Either way, a very good option for Brant to do some damage. The Emerald of Genesis is a stellar option, giving him a bit of energy recharge actually. It grants a nice attack buff and is a really good option overall. Brazen Brilliance is a decent option as it gives some nice attack, but the other buffs are not too useful on him. Nice crit damage tactic, but he has better options. Those are honestly his only options however, as the other 4-stars are just not very good on him. You can also consider the Battle Pass weapon Lumigloss as it's a decent choice. Alright, the moment you've all been waiting for, his team options. Brant has an amazing quick swappable kit in the outro that buffs fusion damage and resonant skill damage. Who does this scream synergy with? That's right, Chun-Li. Unfortunately, Brant will not be a significant upgrade to Chun-Li. Let me explain why. Brant will surely make our Queen Chun-Li hit that much harder, but Chun-Li still lacks the damage to compete with the big nukers such as Carlotta and Genshin. She will be perfectly fine in her team with Brant, but she will not be able to hit as hard as those characters. You gotta remember, Chun-Li is a sub-DPS who will buff other characters. She does incredible damage in quick spurts, but she cannot compete with a main carry by themselves. She can do incredible damage and will be a main carry team, but Brant is maybe a 5 to 10% increase to Chun-Li's current teams. I really just want to gauge your expectations to thinking that Brant will just automatically make Chun-Li an S tier character because we're not there yet. You see, I think I know what the goal of Kuro Games is here. Brant is a fusion buffer that buffs resonant skill and fusion damage, aka Chun-Li, and Chun-Li buffs liberation damage and fusion damage, but that 5-star character that actually takes on fusion damage and liberation damage just doesn't exist yet. But you know who does exist, for now, the 4-star character, Chixia. An actually amazing team is Brant, Chun-Li, and Chixia. You start with Brant and perform quick swap until everyone's Concerto is about ready, and then Chun-Li has 2 to 3 stacks of her Forte. Then, you swap it to Brant and do his damage and outro, into Chun-Li, get the remaining stacks and do her skill, liberation, skill, and then outro into Chixia to do her resonant skill and unleash the liberation for some amazing damage. And for those of you with S6 Chixia, she will actually be able to give the entire team a massive basic attack buff for the next 25 seconds, so Brant will be able to come in and hit even harder this time around. I still need to do some testing, but I believe that this team will be insanely powerful in the right hands. It's the only team that I wasn't able to try, and I regret that I didn't think of this team sooner. Now, you can get Sanhua in place of Chixia, and that would have similar results. It would instead be Sanhua, into Brant, into Chun-Li, and then rinse and repeat. Also, you can of course use Chun-Li, Brant, and Shorekeeper, or Verena for that matter. As a matter of fact, you could use any third character that you want in that team, but the ones that I mentioned earlier are their best options. Shen Liao actually stands out as being a character that could really take advantage of this, thanks to him being liberation damage coded. You know who else is liberation damage coded? Calculus. You'll be able to use your calculator to actually take advantage of Chun-Li, and Calazone will be a great partner for this team, especially since he can very much utilize a quick swap gameplay. So go ahead and dust off your Calibroom because Calipotato will be able to do amazing here. Now, let's focus on the Chun-Li-less teams, because Brant has many team options thanks to him being a sustain for your team. As a resident skill buffer, he will play very well alongside Jinshi and Carlotta. He will be able to truly buff them to insane heights. Jinshi still wants Judgy thanks to the coordinated attacks, but he's still a great option. Brant can also be used as a main carry thanks to Sanhua giving an insane basic attack damage amplification. Crazy to think that this guy fits as a DPS, a sub-DPS, and sustain. As far as sustain, you can fit him literally anywhere. He does some decent damage, and if you have the Moonlit set, he can buff the incoming character while also keeping them alive thanks to his massive shield. He just has so many roles and is very versatile. As a pirate needs to be quick-witted, he is truly the jack of all trades. The moment a fusion character is released that deals insane liberation damage and is quick swap friendly, Brant and Chun-Li will truly reach an insane caliber. For now, Brant will give you that itch for those wanting some amazing quick swap gameplay with Chun-Li. He will be very hard to use for a few weeks, but once you nail down those rotations, he will feel amazing. It is unfortunate that he's so hard to build, and the energy recharge is quite literally the hardest 3 cost pieces to get, but don't stress about the build too much. If you get his weapon, you could deal with missing some substats. If you're missing the weapon, you could build him as a fusion damage dealer instead. Truly versatile in whatever role you want him to be. That also means that he isn't the best at any of these roles. He is fun as hell, but right now, he doesn't have that true perfect spot. With Chun-Li, sure, but again, Chun-Li is missing that glue to make her a tier 0 team. With Brant, she will be a tier 1 team for sure, but she still has a long way to go before she's able to reach the insane height that other teams are able to achieve. You can make Chun-Li and Brant do exceptional damage, but it will take a lot of muscle memory to play them perfectly. But alas, those who ride these Wuthering waves will always be ready to weather the storms. Now set sail, mateys! We have a hot man to pull. Onward! If you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe for more enigmatic content. Your support is what keeps me going, truly. Thank you so much for watching. This is my boy Enigma, and until next time, Enigma out.